Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about yoga culture. Okay, so this is one of those, like, I'm going to peel back the curtain and tell you what's happening in the yoga studios, in the yoga classes. I know that's one of the biggest things that keeps us from practicing. It takes us away from walking through that door because we don't know what to expect. So I'm going to tell you what you can expect. So we're going to talk about three different styles here. Studio culture, yoga studios, the one with the biggest mystique. We're going to talk about gym culture, and then we're going to talk about practicing at home, okay? So, I'll tell you what, let's do it in the reverse order. Practicing at home. A lot of people are most comfortable starting in the privacy of their own home with their yoga practice. You'll see a huge on-demand library on my website. I am not the only one. There's tons of online yoga out there for you to try. If you are going to do an at-home practice, here's a couple of tips for you. Vacuum, dust, clean the space. I know that's not what you're expecting me to say, but clutter can interfere with your practice. So you want to find a nice, clean, tidied up space. And even if that space is small, it doesn't matter really the size of it. It just matters that it's free of a bunch of stuff just everywhere, right? So be mindful. Take a few minutes before you practice. I have 2 dogs with big long hair, and I mean, it's a whole situation. So for me, it's a vacuum real quick before I practice at home. Maybe that's not the case for you. Maybe your house is already clean, I don't know. But either way, tidy up and remove any distractions, right? So take your phone, put it in another room, take your Apple Watch off. The last thing I'd recommend is light a candle. You don't really need lights. Practicing in the dark kind of gives its own little vibe going on. You can have some low light if you want, but I almost always have a candle. I got one right here. And it's just a nice vibe, really. If you're not a candle person, then maybe you have a low light, one of those battery-operated lights. Just kind of set the vibe, right? Take an extra moment to set the tone here. So then we'll go to gym culture. Gym culture is very different than studio culture. It's a little less peaceful, vibey, a little less meditation kind of thing. But in general, all yoga classes are a little less social than like a weightlifting class or a cardio class. I find like the dancing classes at the gym, those are the most social, where everybody's coming in, oh hey, da. Class is kind of loud before the teacher gets started.
I didn't get that. Try again.
Siri didn't get that. All right, so in a yoga class though, the vibe is generally calm, mellow. Some studios, some gyms, you'll walk in and there's some meditation music, the lights are super low, and no one's speaking at all. Other gym studios that you walk into, there's some chatter going on, but generally speaking, you want to be mindful of that person who has just had it and is basking in that yoga studio setting, and they're just to release and relax, and maybe they're already in a meditation before the class has even begun. So you want to be mindful. If you see somebody, gym or studio, who's just lying there in complete silence with their eyes closed, don't sit down right next to them and start talking about Susie and her new boyfriend and blah, 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 blah. It's just rude, right? At the same time, class hasn't started, we're not in a deep meditation, you can have a conversation with somebody, but just keep it a little more quiet than you normally would in like a dance class setting, right? So, for example, yeah, I know, right? Kind of think like library voice, right? Gym culture, I would say, generally speaking, is a little more casual than studio culture, but it's really just depends on the specific place. The studio that I typically practice in, everybody's chit-chatting and carrying on and visiting with each other. It's like a big family, and it's really chatty. But other studios I've been to, I wouldn't dream of saying a word to anyone because it's completely silent. So you kind of have to read the room, right? Don't bring your phone in. Don't bring your phone in. Don't bring your phone in. That's it. It's one of those things that is, it's kind of taboo in a yoga class. Yoga studios, don't bring your phone in. Gym yoga classes, if you bring your phone in, hide it. Put it under a towel, put it under the mat. I get it might be in the middle of your workday, you might have to answer this or that, and if it allows you to practice when you wouldn't be able to practice, I mean, same thing with a studio, but generally speaking, you don't want those phones out, guys. The whole point is to come out of that thinking mind, right? To come out of that work brain. If there's any way that you can leave it in the car, leave it in the locker, whatever it may be, do that. Remove the distraction, take the watch off, whatever it may be. If you like to track your fitness settings, what I recommend on your watch is that you turn it on the yoga setting that you start, but then you also turn it on do not disturb for 1 hour or until you leave or whatever setting you choose. That way you're still able to track your exercise, but you're not receiving notifications for texts and phone calls. If it's possible to block it on your calendar so everybody knows you're just unavailable for that hour, I promise the earth will continue to turn and all of your problems will be waiting for you when you're finished. If you do have to take that phone call, if you do have to answer that text message, if you're doing it in class, you would want to do your very best to hide it. Like maybe a quick smiley face, a quick check mark, like I see that, whatever it may be. Like just try your best to keep it low because you're choosing to come out of your practice into another place. You want to do your best to not interfere with other people's ability to not go back into that outside world, right? If you had to take a phone call, that would definitely need to be taken outside of the classroom. So you would just simply let it be on vibrate or whatever, certainly don't have your ringer on. But if you were receiving notification that you had a phone call, you would just quietly walk out of the studio, keep your voice low. What some people forget is when they're on their phone just outside that thin little door, we can still hear every word you're saying, right? So keep the library voice, go step away if you need to step away as far as you can, whatever it may be. Finish up your phone call and do your best to come back into that place. I know it's really, really tough to leave phones aside, but do your best. I caution you to not position yourself in the very back of the room. As beginners, I see a lot of times you put yourself in the very back of the room so you can see everyone. Perfectly logical, makes perfect sense. What happens is halfway through class, sometimes we turn around and the back of the room is the front of the room, and guess what? You're in the front and center. So what I would do is go into the center of the room, and that way you're surrounded. If you're looking right, you've got somebody to look at. If you're looking left, you've got someone to look at. If you're standing, you've got someone to look at. If you're upside down or facing backwards, you've got someone to look at. So go as close to the center as you can. That's where the beginners are going to hang out, okay? Or that's where you want to hang out, so you can see as much as you can see. Let's see what else. Oh, bring your water bottle in with you. That is completely normal and customary. If you are going into a hot yoga class, you want to have that water bottle full to the top, maybe even a second water bottle with you, depending on your body. For me, this one right here, what is this? How many ounces is this? This is a 24-ounce water bottle. This is kind of my go-to, and I drink most of that in 1 hour hot yoga class. I try to finish it on my way home, and I've got a pretty short commute. So you definitely want to keep the water consumption up for a hot yoga class. Yin and restorative yoga, we'll talk about those more later, but surprisingly, they make you thirstier than you would think. So they're super chill and relaxing kind of vibes, but just anytime you're stretching and moving, you just want to have water nearby. So I would encourage you to do that. Let's see. In and out is absolutely okay. If you are feeling overheated in a hot yoga class, we don't want you to pass out. Leave the room, cool down, come back in when you're ready. Keep in mind, the coolest place in the room is always near the ground because heat rises. So you want to be down like in a child's pose, and we'll talk more about what that looks like later. But just low to the ground if you're feeling overheated, and certainly walk out if needed. The one thing that really drives me crazy, but that is important to note, is a lot of studios will lock the door before class begins or right around class time starting. So you kind of want to check in, like gym yoga, the door doesn't ever lock. You can come in late, you can leave early. The vibe in gym yoga is generally speaking more casual, and the focus tends to be more on your fitness, right? And less on the mental and like spiritual benefits of yoga. So you'll see a lot of people in a gym yoga class like leaving early. Like at the very end, we have some time for meditation, and I've noticed in a gym class, a lot of people might just leave early, like, oh, I'm not into that. I got my cardio, I got my stretching, like I'm out, Whereas in a yoga studio, if you can stay to the end, it's generally speaking, it's highly recommended for any yoga class, gym or studio. But in a studio, there's less often that people are leaving early to avoid that meditation time or whatever it may be, because most people that practice in a studio recognize that the benefits from the meditation are equal, if not greater, than that of the physical practice, of building your strength and flexibility and endurance and all that. So I would encourage you, hopefully by the end of this 3-week series, you'll really experience the need for that meditative quality time at the end of class, and you won't want to leave early. But all of that said, if you gotta go, if you know I've got to leave 5 minutes early, and should I not go to the class because I have to leave 5 minutes early, I would say go to the class, okay? Because I want you to practice yoga as much as possible. But there's some things that you can do. If you know that you're leaving class early, don't set up like a 4-course, like I've got my water here, I've got my journal here, I've got my bag over there. Keep it tidy, right? Put everything outside except your mat and your water bottle, so that all you have to do to leave early, quietly get up. Don't roll the mat up and do all that stuff. Just quietly get up, fold the mat as little, just really quickly, easily, quietly exit the room. Make no noise. Quietly close the door behind you. And then once you're out of the room, then you roll up your mat and put all your things away and you get organized. Generally speaking, you're gonna know before class if you need to leave early. If you know that you're not leaving early, then yes, spread out, get comfortable, get what you need. But at the same time, don't take up too much room because the classroom may fill up, right? So you don't wanna be the person who's got stuff everywhere. So stay tidy either way, just like you do in your home. Generally speaking, it's very customary to have a mat and a water bottle and a couple of blocks. That's your typical yoga class setup, right? I'm a yoga teacher, so it's kind of customary for me to have a journal next to me when I'm practicing, because I get a lot of great ideas when I'm practicing and I want to jot them down so that I remember to share them with you, right? But my journal is small, doesn't take up a lot of room, and sometimes I have it in there with me and sometimes I don't. I like all the fancy stuff, right? So I have my own little hand towel, and I spray essential oil on it, and it smells amazing. And I practice in a hot yoga studio, so I've got my hot yoga towel as well. But what I'm not gonna do is leave my spray out, leave my yoga mat bag, leave towels everywhere. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my towel across my mat. It's already set up, wet it where I need to wet it. We can get into that later. Go ahead and spray my hand towel, and then I'm gonna put those things away, right? So that all I've got next to me is my water bottle, maybe my journal, and I always have a couple of blocks. A lot of people practice without blocks. Some people need a bolster, a blanket, whatever. Whatever props you need, that's totally normal to have those next to you. How am I doing on time? Okay, I've got 1 more minute. Let's see here. Okay. The door locking, I did kind of mention that, but I do want to come back to it. It's kind of intrusive to come into a yoga class late. I've done it before, I'll do it again, because again, it's better to come late than not come at all. But if you can possibly arrive a few minutes early, get yourself situated, the first thing they're gonna do, if class starts at 6 p.m., at 6 p.m., that teacher's gonna walk through the door and set the tone for the class and begin. The class typically starts in kind of a meditative state, maybe a child's pose or a seated position, sometimes flat on your back. So it can be awkward. The class is very quiet. The teacher is directing your awareness to your breath, to different places. And if somebody walks in and begins adjusting their mats, it's just a little intrusive. Not gonna say I haven't done it, because I have. And I can tell you when I'm teaching, it doesn't bother me one bit. I tell the person, welcome, come on in. It's just something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that some studios lock that door before the class even begins. The studio that I teach in, some teachers lock the door about 10 minutes into class. Some teachers don't. I try to remember to lock it and forget half the time. It really just depends on where you are. A gym yoga class, they're never gonna lock the door. But in studios, I would say 9 times out of 10, that door's gonna get locked. So you wanna be there on time, and ideally 10 minutes ahead. The last thing I'll mention, you will be prepared to walk into any yoga class anywhere by the end of this series, but if you have an injury that you're working around, that you're modifying, you can still come to class. Right now, I've got a kneecap thing, I've got a hamstring thing. I'm still practicing every day. There's always modifications you can take. It can be helpful for the teacher to have an idea of what's going on in your body. The teacher is not a doctor, the teacher is not your counselor, okay? So you don't wanna go in and talk about all the things, your whole medical history, blah, 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 but in my case with my kneecap, I can't put my left kneecap on the ground right now. So I mentioned to my teacher before class, hey, my kneecap's sliding around right now. I'm not sure what's going on. I got an appointment coming up, but you're gonna see me making some interesting modifications. Teachers like, appreciate it, no problem, right? So just kind of a heads up so they're not thinking like, are you okay? Like, when you're doing some really strange modifications, right? Because of that whatever you've got going on. It's just nice to give them a heads up. All right, guys, that's it for today. So tomorrow we're gonna get into what you can expect as far as breathing. There's some interesting breathing stuff going on in studios that I wanna make you aware of. And then we'll also talk about the way typical classes are structured and different styles of yoga. So thank you for being here. Let's see, we are right at 15 minutes. See you tomorrow.